I want to shift the topic slightly. Leadership, because this is a podcast about influence and leadership, and you need to be a great leader if you're a great coach. So, what's your advice to people listening to the podcast on how do you actually become a great leader? What's been your learnings in that space?
Yeah, well, I think initially my first experience of leadership was when I was captain of a few different football teams. So one of my English teams, Hull Kingston Rovers, which were a famous club in the north of England, I was appointed captain there for 2 years, and being an import as well, that was probably a little bit unusual. But there's certain things that I thought about straight away when I said yes to doing that job as a captain of a team, and it was a full-time team, full-time environment. But the first one was just leading with actions, so with regards to training standards and the way I prepared, and also how I played. I think the biggest thing with leadership in sporting context is consistency. That the coaching staff know what they're going to get from you. So if I could be a 7 or 8 out of 10 most weeks and most days at training, that's being consistent. Whereas if I was a 9 out of 10 one week, or one day at training and then a 2 out of 10 the next day at training or in the next game, that's being really inconsistent. So I needed to make sure that I prepared well. So I think that that experience was really good. And then coaching different teams as a head coach at a variety of levels, as I've sort of grown, and probably even some learnings or lessons I've got from the Broncos experience versus the South Sydney experience was, as a leader you also need to delegate, right? And you need to delegate to others to give them some responsibility, and then you can make them accountable to those responsibilities. So I think at times, potentially, particularly 2020 when things were going a little bit pear-shaped, I probably tried to do everything, if that made sense in some ways, rather than delegate. So I've certainly learned that you need to put people around you that you can trust, and then you delegate to them. Like I said, give them responsibility and you can make them accountable. But I like the idea of Scott Robinson, who is the Crusaders Super Rugby coach in New Zealand, very successful coach. He said to me one day, we were doing a Zoom last year, he said, do you know where the word leadership came from? I said, no, I don't know. And he said, well, it was back from the Explorer days, leading a ship. And he said they used to go out to sea for months at a time. So you had to lead the ship. Otherwise there was a mutiny. And what they used to do in the mutiny, they'd throw you overboard. And so you had to make sure that, everyone was in sync, so to speak. So I think when I've done it really well, everybody's been in sync. I think of my time at South Sydney and time at some other clubs in different roles, I've been in sync. I think, there was some challenges at the Broncos, no doubt about that, with regards to leadership, and you learn from that. But I think it's important that you lead with your actions, and I think it's important that you delegate. There are a couple of things that are really important, but ultimately at the end of the day, you've got to make a decision. You're the one who has to have the final call.